Welcome back. I'm going to continue on in chapter 12. I don't want to make the videos too long and lose your attention there. So the rest of chapter 12 is about some of the weave patterns, travel speeds, electrode angles, electrode extensions, and things like that. Now, for a lot of your processes, whether you were to call what the weave pattern actually is, that's how you actually manipulate the weld pool. So what I mean by that, so for example, here's my T-joint. Let's say I'm going to weld in this direction. I'm right-handed. Now, here's my gun angle. Now this would be what they call a forehand progression. So that means I'm going to have my gun pointing towards the direction that I'm traveling, and I'm going to work it this way. Weave patterns, some guys like to do circles, some guys like to weave it, some just go straight. For short arc, typically you can use any pattern. So this right here would be a forehand progression with some sort of a weave pattern. Or you can just go straight. A backhand progression is going to be basically just the opposite. You can go any direction with short arc. So my gun angle is going to be the same. I'm right-handed. Here's my gun angle coming down. Now I'm going to be welding this direction. So your gun is actually pointing in the opposite direction that you're going to weld. Still can do circles, C's, or just straight for short arc. They call that backhand progression. As far as your weave patterns, some companies allow you to weave, some don't. It all depends what industry you're working for, what product you are building. So backhand, opposite, your gun is pointing in the opposite direction that you travel. Forehand, and you can use whatever weave pattern you'd like. Make sure you follow your weld procedure when you get into industry, and whatever cosmetically you'd like. So backhand, opposite direction. Your gun's pointing in the opposite direction, you're going that way. Forehand, your gun is pointing in the direction that you are traveling. We also have what they call your travel speed. Like I said, that's how fast that you are actually manipulating that gun. So for example, if I have my gun, I'm going super slow. For example, here's my travel speed. That's how fast your gun is actually moving. Or you can go super fast. That's how fast you're actually pushing that weld puddle through. That's determined by you, the welder. How fast you move through the weld or how slow. Electrode extension. What is that? A lot of times this is called what they call stick out. This is all determined by, here's my piece of metal I'm welding on. Here's my nozzle, contact tube, here's my wire. That is the distance of how far you're wired. So for example, that might be a fairly long electrode extension. Here's my nozzle. Notice the difference in the gap from my nozzle. So that's actually a longer electrode extension, that's shorter. Now for like short arc, you'll notice the closer that you can hold that nozzle to the base metal, the better it's going to weld. For spray arc, when we actually get in our currents are a lot higher, a lot hotter temperatures, a little bit further away because we're going to increase our flow rate, our gassing, our shielding gas. A little bit further away, you're going to have better results because you're not going to melt that contact tip. So electrode extension is basically telling me how far my electrode sticks out from my contact tip. Like I said, it all determines what process you're welding. That is going to determine your electrode extension. Short arc, closer the better. You won't get near as bad. Gun angle, that is typically the angle of my gun. Here's my base metal that I'm welding. So this would be what they call perpendicular gun angle. Here's my contact tip into my welder. It's at a 90-degree angle. Wire coming through here. So that means that when this actually hits through here, you're at a 90-degree angle. This here also determines kind of what process. Once you get these gun angles figured out, you'll see that they're going to carry over into a lot of your other welding processes. Doesn't matter if it's flux core, shielded metal arc welding, TIG welding. Typically, what we recommend roughly about a 15-20 degree angle. Let's do that. Contact tip. So as your wire's coming down, about 15 to 20 degrees angle on your base mount. That is what they consider your gun angle, the angle of your gun. Also, when you look at a T-joint from the side, our gun angle roughly is going to be about a 45 degree into the joint as the wire comes down. So we're just back a little bit. So if I'm going in a forehand progression, 15-20 degree angle, roughly a 45 degree angle into the joint as I work my way across. Same as if you're doing a backhand. So 15-20 degree angle, going backhand, hitting roughly a 45 degree angle into your joint of your weld. Backhand, forehand, you can do that with any one of the welding processes. Typically here at the college we do a lot of forehand progression welding, but I'm not saying you can't do backhand. Spray, and when we get into spray quite a bit, typically that's all a forehand, just letter E kind of thing. So now also in GMAW they have we talked about our solid electrode. We're going to have a chapter 28 is just about electrodes. Solid, what does that mean? That means that that filler metal's a solid composition. It's a solid metal. We also weld with what they call metal core. So here's my wire. Now at the center, that metal, the core of that is metal. Kind of like your solid metal, but then they also put oxidizers and stark stabilizers or arc stabilizers into the actual metal too. So, wire feed units, there's a couple different types. There's a push-pull, pull and push. You always hear pull, push, this and that. What does that actually mean? A push system, basically you have your two drive rolls in your wire feeder. Some have 4. It actually pushes the wire through. So this starts out back by the wire feeder itself. So it actually pushes the wire through your welding whip, throughout your contact tip, and so on. That's a push style. I'd have to say probably 95% of your welding units out on the market today are probably a push system. Simpler, and so on. A pull system. So if this is my welding nozzle, here's my nozzle. Don't laugh at my artwork. And it comes down, something like this. And this goes to the welder. Here's my wire coming out. A pull system, there is actually a set of drive rolls right in your welding web. So as these drive rolls turn, it is actually pulling the wire through the system instead of pushing it. So your drive rolls are actually in your actual welding lead. And there's actually a push-pull system. Typically this is in your aluminum processes because the aluminum is very soft. So then you're using both. So you have drive rolls right where it's coming off of the the wire right off the roll, the wire itself, and you also have a set of drive rolls in your welding lead. So that's a push-pull system. You're using both. You got actually a couple different sets of drive rolls in different locations. One is pushing it, the other one is pulling it. Then they also have what they call little spool guns. Instead of using like your 33 or 44 pounds or 50 pound roll of wire, they actually have that little roll of wire right on the gun itself. This goes to the welder. So you're actually welding lead, so your little 5 or 6 pound spool of wire is right in your welding whip, and it's actually being fed right from there. Many different styles, many different units. Don't be alarmed of them. Your most common one is going to be your push system, where the wire is either inside the welder or it's on top of the feeder outside of your welder. So, as we go on, like I said, there's many different styles. There's many different styles of guns that we're going to be using out in the lab. They're in industry. Basically, they all do the same principles. There's different types of contact tips, different types of nozzles, and all that kind of stuff. Don't get alarmed with all that right now. Keep it simple. Keep it very simple. So, Chapter 10. Basically, this is an introductory to gas metal arc welding. Chapter 11, Chapter 28, and the other chapters that we'll be going through this unit. We'll get more in depth in each welding process. We'll get more in depth of how to actually set the welder up and things like that. Read through the chapter, watch the video a couple different times, but like I said, this is just kind of like a little bit of an equipment, type of current we're going to be using. It's kind of more of an introductory to this unit. Thank you.